Warning. This information may shock you. Greetings, friends of the truth. Everyone must know this before it is deleted. Why is the Illuminati always hiding it? Let's start.
This out-of-this-world story of an abductee will make you question everything. An abductee has shared the odd insight he received from extraterrestrials during his 17 years of out-of-the-ordinary experiences. The anonymous narrator believes it is imperative for the open-minded individuals to understand the true nature of this universe, as well as the risks we may encounter after departing from this earthly existence, so that we may fully embrace the reality awaiting us. This lengthy one-hour read is comprised of unique views over the story of creation, humanity's ancient and forbidden past, secret elitist societies, what the future has in store for us, and last but not least, a different and intriguing view of the role played by the Anunnaki in engineering and governing the human species from the shadows. It's best that you take this read with a grain of salt, providing that its author chose to remain anonymous. Much of the information comes from the point of view of an alleged abductee, but its unique narrative correlates to a work of fiction. Nevertheless, it remains an extremely captivating and thought-provoking read. Full disclosure, revelations of an extraterrestrial encounter. My name is Redacted. I'm Redacted, years old, and I'm going to let you know right away, there's a whole lot to digest about who I am, why I'm here, and what I've gone through in my life. The thoughts that will go through your head as you read this have kept me awake hundreds of sleepless nights in my life. I've questioned my sanity many times over, but I assure you, in every way possible, I am quite sane. I'm not endorsing this story, or saying it even really truly happened. I'm only saying I believe this happened to me. I could be crazy. I could be getting used to spread distraction. I don't know. I'm just going with what's gone on in my head over 40 years, and saying it like it is. Just keep in mind, if I was telling this for any other reason than a true love for this planet, I'd be telling it to a Hollywood agent or book publisher and charging you money to read it. I'm not. We all have our reasons for being drawn to the esoteric. Mine was UFOs. Not my interest in them, but their interest in me. It started when I was only 4 years old, and it's gone on ever since. My first experience was a face-to-face meeting with a strange little being. We communicated by telepathy, and that connection remains today. It's a one-way kind of communication. I've asked a million questions but never really got an answer to any of them. Well, except for one, I suppose. I guess she must be able to hear me. The one question I asked the most was answered. It just wasn't the answer I wanted. Naturally, I wanted to know what was going on. And I always heard the same response. When it's time, you'll know. I've gone years with no interaction, but she always comes back. Yes. The being was female and quite motherly in her communication with me. She tells me things. About myself and about them, and about this planet. And its history. Seems I've been at this for quite some time too. I'm a very old soul. She's recently told me a bunch of things that, in all honesty, I already knew, sort of. I know one thing for sure. Among other things, I'm a warrior through and through. That I didn't need to be told. But just how much of a warrior, I had no idea. Unfortunately, having the heart of a lion only gets you so far. And for me, it's never been far enough. That's why I've learned to fight with my mind this time. Even though I spent a lot of my life in a subculture of violence this time around, I see now I had to be there to unlearn the ways I've always handled my confrontations. In this life too, but more so in my past lives. I really am tired of all this. It's been long enough. Too many people have died thinking we could beat them, the elite force controlling the world, in a physical confrontation. They didn't start actually abducting me until I was 31 years old though. And I prefer to think of myself as taken, not abducted. For the last 17 years it's been an on and off again thing. I'd just gone 5 years without any contact or communication incidents, but in August 2016, like 4 months ago, things got very serious, very fast. Life was as normal as I think it's ever been for me. I was right where I wanted to be, and comfortable with everything my life was becoming. Mine has been a life of constant rebuilding and change. I went to bed one Saturday night just like any other night. But Sunday morning was not anything like any Sunday I'd been through before. I woke up and realized immediately what happened. I was freezing. And soaking wet. And I felt like I was in a dream. Have you ever been under anesthetic? Same feeling when waking up. It's like coming back from, I don't know where, but it's the telltale sign. But this time there was more. I had a head full of ideas and an absolute need to search out and connect to people just like all of you. And she was back. Like never before. And she had a lot to say in the last 3 months. Wow. What I'm going to tell you was revealed to me, a bit here, piece there, over my lifetime. It really never made much sense to me though, until now. Now I have the whole truth. And I do apologize to the people I've been difficult with, but you can't imagine the pressure I'm under with this. It's really, really hard to listen to theories I know are incomplete or distraction, while having no ability to present what I know until right now. I was told not to tell anyone. So, before I go any further, I need you to understand something. Read this next line as many times as you need to. We aren't what we've been taught to believe we are. Not at all. Nothing. What I'm going to tell you may change your life. In what way is entirely up to you. I see it one of 3 ways: you'll hate me forever, you'll embrace this and know me forever, or you'll call me crazy. The reality is there's been some very big lies told. And I'm going to do my best to explain the who, what, when, where, and why that surround these secrets. So here it is, the real story as I understand it. This planet was not the result of a Big Bang or the creation of God as we understand him. The universe came to exist because of the One. The One is neither alive or dead, male or female, good nor bad. It just is. The One is responsible for creating all the framework which functions to provide an environment for everything to exist in. It created this planet, and all the other planets, stars, moons, and everything in between. Unlike the story we were told, God does not work alone. The One had some help. The One created several intelligent races of benevolent aliens that function to serve the universe. Like the One, they are immortal and never die. They are tangible beings though, just not in the same way we are. These aliens are the craftsmen tasked with maintaining the integrity of all the One had created. Planet Earth was seeded with life by a race of immortal aliens called Centaurians from a planet called Eden. It's located in the Centauri star system. And when I say life, I mean all of it. Especially us. The Centaurians are part of the immortal workforce that service the universe. They are scientists and geneticists. It was their job to seed life throughout the universe. There is one exception though. The sector where the 6-headed beast ruled. Using a master set of plant and animal DNA supplied by the One, the Centaurians genetically engineered a vast living library of life. Earth was their seed bank and it was called the Garden of Eden. Easily it was the most beautiful of all the planets. The One had really done a wonderful job. They used a process called gene splicing, and did this work in labs on Eden. Each new plant or animal prototype they created was then taken to Earth where it was cultivated. Not all planets have the same conditions or type of atmosphere. So it also had to be determined which species could exist in different places. This planet was designed to support many different types of environments and climates that mimic conditions around the universe. Once these new products were studied, logged, and samples were stored, they were destroyed. And when the one finished what IT had set out to do, which was create the universe, and the immortal workforce to help complete it, Number 2 took offense. Number 2 realized the one had provided no role whatsoever for IT to contribute to all that was created. Upon realizing the sole purpose of IT's existence was to keep the one from becoming lonely again, Number 2 decided to leave. At the time, Number 2 didn't realize it, but the choice to leave introduced some new things to the universe: conflict and free will. Number 2 took up residence in a far-off corner of the universe. It didn't take long to realize though, IT was all alone. As the one had divided itself to solve the same problem, so too did Number 2. But Number 2 didn't want to face the same dilemma, so IT divided into 6 equal individuals. And they quickly set out to develop this corner of the universe into their very own version of what the rest of the universe would be like. The result was a galactic society of miscreants led by what would come to be known as the Six-Headed Beast. The division into 6 individuals had corrupted key bits of knowledge and understanding from the consciousness of the whole. This lost knowledge was the reason all the creatures that were created to reside on the planets in this sector had no soul. Some of these creatures were worse than others, but none of them could actually be considered good. They are flesh and blood creatures who only live for a certain length of time and die one day. We were created the way we were, with a soul, for a reason. The Centaurians wanted to create an intelligent worker who would live on Earth and be responsible for maintaining the integrity of the Garden of Eden. Tending to this garden would be an extremely delicate, and sometimes dangerous program. They needed leverage to ensure compliance to the job. Also, since free will and conflict had come into existence when Number 2 left, it was decided that from this point forward, immortality would have to be earned. So it was decided that a promise of immortality under certain conditions would help motivate this creature called a human being to serve its purpose to the best of its ability. A unique approach that would allow human beings to exist as 2 separate halves of one entity had been successfully designed by an amazing team of scientists on Eden. And quickly this design and reasoning for it was approved by the one. One half of the human would exist on Eden. The other half would exist on Earth. The 2 individual halves of the human being are connected by something called a soul. Inside the body of each half of the humans flows a pure form of energy that binds both parts to one another. A telepathic connection that allowed the 2 parts to communicate back and forth was also a very useful feature for completing the work projects tasked to the humans. The half which existed on Eden would work in the lab as a genetic scientist to create new life forms. When these plants and animals were cultivated on Earth, the process would be conducted by the Earth halves of the scientists whose team had invented the specific species. This way the scientist and the botanist or biologist could share information to ensure a well cared for and properly designed product was the end result of their efforts. This telepathic connection was also a way to never forget home and in times of struggle, a voice of reason to offer advice. A friend, so no matter what, no human would ever be alone, like the one had once been. You likely won't believe me yet, but that voice in your head, your conscience, is actually what's left of the telepathic connection to our counterpart on Eden. Of course today we are raised to believe thinking anything other than it's your own voice will get you locked up in a psych ward. Big threats to protect big secrets. And big secrets are certainly being kept from us about how and why that connection was lost. To become immortal, the humans had to live by guidelines and rules and show the intelligence, loyalty, and desire to be a productive, honest, contributing member of the galactic society they belong to. A series of tests, and lessons would be incorporated into their lives that would determine when they would be ready to achieve immortality. On Earth everything living has an expiration date, meaning one day it dies. This applies to everything except for one thing: the human soul. When a human died on Earth, the soul ascended to Eden for evaluation. If it was decided the soul was ready, the two halves would merge into one immortal being. However, if it wasn't ready, the soul would experience something called reincarnation, where it was sent back to Earth in a new body. The human would then encounter a more difficult path designed to address the issues that kept it from achieving immortality. This complex two-part creature would be the prototype for a whole new approach to the concept of being alive. If successful, humans could be placed all over the universe. As the Centaurians hoped, the evolution of the Garden of Eden, and its new occupants, was a great success. After nearly 100,000 years of evolution, only one major change was made to how this system would operate. It was originally the plan to allow unlimited reincarnation and guaranteed immortality eventually. However, there were unforeseen issues that arose from that idealistic view. The result was a decision to permit 10 chances to get it right and earn the reward of immortality. By limiting reincarnation to 9 times, the decision to populate some of the other planets that had been seeded into life with humans had passed the scrutiny of the One. By the way, I told you which star system Eden exists in without feeling like I'm giving up a secret. Unfortunately, there are people here on Earth right now searching for it, and they already know where they should be looking. The Kepler telescope made a discovery this year, not 6 months ago, in August of 2016. There is one particular planet quite close to Earth. Like close enough where the technology here will allow a probe to make it there in the next 25 years or so. It's not Eden, but it's one step closer. So they really need to be stopped before they get there. As I said before, I'm an old soul. And I've tried more than once to stop those responsible for what I'm trying to tell you, during several of my past lives. Obviously, I've never been on the successful side of any of the battles that have taken place in an attempt to gain control of our own destiny. I'm sure you've realized something must have gone terribly wrong someplace along the line. Earth is quite obviously not being used by the Centaurians as a living library anymore. It's being exploited, polluted, and soon enough, will be destroyed. If you don't know, there are several tyrannical groups of very rich, very powerful, businessmen, political leaders and church officials with questionable ties to each other. They belong to groups such as the Illuminati, the Roman Catholic Church, the British monarchy, and the Freemasons, to name a few. It's widely accepted that these billionaire boys' clubs are not on the up and up and exist to serve ulterior motives. They have created, implemented, and enforced a system of corruption, greed, control, and hostility for thousands of years. The roots of these shady organizations have been traced back to the time of Jesus. The last attempt to confront these corrupt, power-hungry tyrants was in the early 1300s. A very wealthy group called the Knights Templar, that was aligned with the Roman Catholic Church, had found out some extremely sensitive information about Jesus and the Bible. Having expressed concerns to a trusted government official about the church withholding the secret knowledge, the Knights Templar were betrayed and for the most part, disbanded and killed brutally for going against the Pope. And ever since then these elite tyrants have taken full advantage of the fear they instilled in anyone who may oppose them. Their stranglehold on the resources and human lives on planet Earth grows stronger every single day we choose to do nothing. The Knights knew what I know. Unlike me, they never got the chance to tell though. Once you know why, and what is at stake, you'll understand why I've made it my choice to suggest we confront these men, end these lies, and try again to rid this planet from their control. The elite tyrants who control us using money, work hand in hand with the ones who destroy some of us by taking our soul. The Roman Catholic Church is the real controlling influence behind those running the world, enslaving mankind, and destroying this beautiful planet. There is no one more powerful than the guy with the funny hat, the Pope. None that are human anyways. The Pope is always chosen from a secret, and very long list of bloodlines that go back thousands of years to a time when giants roamed the earth. Yeah, I just said that. But it's got to be said. And someone had to say it. And that's always been my role. To sound the alarm. But this time the call, my call, will be heard. This time, the world is ready to hear it. You are ready to hear it. The age of information has brought a new dimension, one we have never had available before. If you haven't realized it yet, she told me, it's time. This time, we have the ability to unite worldwide. And we will. And we are. I can feel the soul of every warrior who ever lived and died at the hands of the elite. All of them. They're all here. Some already know it, most don't. But you all will. The universe will not let you rest until you accept the responsibility of fixing what we have always allowed them to do to us. The elite aren't exactly like us, in case you haven't noticed. There is an empty, void, hole in all of them. The world really is an us versus them situation. You may believe we are all one and some spiritual awakening is on the horizon, but please, know this, there are two different species living together here on Earth. Humans. And half-breeds. And no, they are not shape-shifting reptilians. In all ways they are identical to us, except for one thing. They don't have a soul. When they die, they are dead. That's it. No more. They are manufactured. These soulless shells I'm talking about are the elite. And they know what they are. Predators. Nasty, sick, twisted predators. There is another group of people who also suffer an impairment of their soul, but they have no idea anything is even wrong with them. At least they have a soul, even if it has been shut right off. As long as it's there, all hope is not lost. It's imperative if we want to experience any kind of freedom again, we begin working together. All men. All for one cause. One world united. United, we can move forward into a new age of enlightenment. United, we can be free from all the pain that's been our lives here on planet Earth. It will not be easy. But nothing good ever is. Just be certain, if we continue to fall for the tactics that keep us divided, once again, we will fall short. Divide and conquer will defeat us like it has before in past lives. The elite have slowly divided the entire world into divisions so small, they feel confident that it's just not possible for us to lay aside our differences or seek a new perspective on our beliefs. I'm hoping that deep down inside though, you feel it. You've always felt it. You probably didn't understand that feeling was your other half calling out to you. And your home. Eden. In all ways possible, they both need you now. More than ever. For some of us, the connection to our other half is starting to be established once more. I'll explain why later. It's the ones caught deep in this web of lies I worry about though. The ones with the soul affliction. Things on Eden have taken a very long time to fully recover from the Anunnaki invasion. The reason is the soul affliction that has taken hold here on Earth lately has nearly crippled the population on Eden. The half of the human that's born and exists on Eden, that's attached to the people on Earth commonly referred to as sheeple, people who can't see anything at all wrong with how the world operates, are basically handicapped. They don't contribute to the workforce, in fact, they take away from it, as they require constant care and supervision. Despite all that has changed since humans came into existence, the soul still continues to develop properly and in unison with its counterpart on Eden. The changes to the minds of the humans on Earth, however, somehow have caused the autism-like affliction of the mind running rampant on Eden, so I'm here on a mission. I'm here to wake you up to what you used to be, to what you are. and what you need to be, if we ever want to free ourselves from this nightmare we've all been tricked into living. I guess tricked isn't the best choice of words either. They didn't trick us, they genetically modified us is what they did. And what I'm about to tell you now, is where things get intense. What you think you know about the history of Earth and its many different inhabitants, are all lies. And it's the job of the Church, to protect those lies. And the reward from protecting those lies, goes to the enforcers of the lie. The Illuminati. The Freemasons. The elite. Their reward is your life of servitude. And every man, woman and child belongs to them whether you admit it, or not. Because the elite know they are soulless shells of what we are, they hate us. Once I explain what they are lying about, and how far they've gone to protect the lie, you'll understand just how much hate for us they hold. The only other things that interest them are material riches and the thrill of feeling somehow superior as they treat us like garbage in a ruthless pursuit of the almighty dollar. And we allow it because deep down we feel like our souls will live on regardless. But that was the old way. Soon you will realize how, like me, you've avoided the trap and reincarnated here, over and over again. Until we get this done, we will continue stuck in this loop, doomed to watch history repeat itself again and again. And I'm going to tell you why. There was an invasion on Eden, and they lost. The Centaurians are peaceful scientists, not warriors. The Anunnaki, a race of soulless creatures from the far corner of the universe developed by the six-headed beast, had come seeking knowledge. They required technology to save the atmosphere of the planet they came from, Nibiru. But Eden refused to help them. They were not in the business of cooperating with any of the soulless abominations created by the six-headed beast. And the Anunnaki replied in force. In the process of taking what they came for, they also discovered the location of Earth. They left Eden in near ruins, and made off with some very sensitive, essential information about all life, and about planet Earth in particular. The Anunnaki first arrived on planet Earth during a cleansing period. Once all of the different species were properly sampled and classified, or if circumstances required it, the scientists in charge would initiate a cleansing. The eradication of the old, to usher in the new. The idea being to repeat the same process with new varieties of plants and animals, as they were developed and created on Eden. This particular ice age was also to repair a structural issue with the drainage system. A series of massive trenches and gullies were needed, and the only thing powerful enough to dig them were migrating glaciers. The humans all relocated to Africa during that time, moved by ships sent from Eden. Unfortunately, this relocation turned out to be the very thing that gave full advantage to the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were quite pleased with initial test samples they took. This planet was rich with monoatomic gold, just as the stolen information from Eden had stated. The information from Eden provided them with the formula used to create, or repair, an atmosphere. Monoatomic gold is the key ingredient. And they needed a lot. The next thing the Anunnaki did was set in motion a chain of events which accelerated the melting process. There was a large area though where life was thriving. Here the Anunnaki found a creature they hoped could be used as workers for the massive job of mining the earth. They had discovered humans. However, these creatures were quite different than anything the Anunnaki had ever encountered. They seemed intelligent enough, but they were impossible to deal with. Nothing, not fear, not pain, not even watching their friends die would sway them to what the Anunnaki wanted them to do. It was almost like these humans had one purpose and couldn't do anything else even if they wanted. But it was love for their home and an outright refusal to damage, destroy, alter, or manipulate the earth at the Anunnaki's request that kept them from conforming. The Anunnaki even tried, unsuccessfully, claiming they were the ones who created the humans. However, at that time the Anunnaki were unaware of the connection the humans had to their other half back on Eden. The humans knew exactly who had arrived. The Anunnaki were in fact very intelligent creatures. However, a series of genetic manipulations performed on the male humans would solve the problem, or so it was believed. One by one, the male humans were captured and injected with a DNA upgrade that would eventually change the fate of the inhabitants of the Garden of Eden. It would just be a matter of time. The Anunnaki, having completed the genetic tampering, prepared to leave. They needed to give the melting process of the ice-covered planet time to do its thing. A small team was assembled and would remain on Earth to manage and maintain the breeding process of the humans. This task was put into the hands of a top scientist named Enki. Enki was a powerful member of the upper echelon of Anunnaki hierarchy. He was very interested in studying the progress on the rate of change in these creatures. The Anunnaki had an amazing gift bestowed by the six-headed beast which created them. They had the power to shape-shift, or transform into whatever they needed to be. So they took on human form. Enki stood among the humans and watched as the other Anunnaki boarded their ship and left Earth. At that point the changes to the human mind had not taken over yet, and as the ship left, a legend was born about the ones who came from the sky in black clouds that burned in the sky. And in telling this legend, the first of the changes began to materialize in the hearts and minds of the recently injected men, as fear crept in and filled them with a brand new perspective on life. This new emotion clashed heavily with the very limited emotional database humans had been living with up to this point. It only took a few generations of reproduction for Enki to realize something had gone wrong though. By this stage there should have been significant changes in the way this creature's mind worked. But the change was minimal at best. These creatures were learning to simply adapt, and somehow they retained the sense of self-worth they had always enjoyed. Frustrated, Enki began a series of experiments on his modified humans. What he discovered shocked and amazed him. In ways he could not understand, it appeared this creature was in fact two creatures. Enki began to decipher a series of files that were part of his spoils of war from the invasion of Eden. And what he learned, he could not believe. These creatures had something called a soul. Something he had never heard of. Something that made these creatures immortal. As far as Enki knew, only the six-headed beast was immortal. More than anything, he wanted that. In fact, Enki became obsessed with the idea of living forever. So obsessed, he entirely forgot why he had attempted to change the humans in the first place. All that mattered was finding a way to implant or replicate one of these souls into himself. Experiment after experiment failed. And as these further modified humans got released back among the others, the more damaged the integrity of the humans became. After several more generations, significant changes could be seen. So much so that they began to change in their physical appearance over time, not only mentally as the modification was initially supposed to be. The most significant change was the color of some of the creatures' skin. There seemed to be several distinct skin tones and physical attributes appearing. Though Enki had yet to discover the secret of the soul, he was forced to turn his attention back to creating a workforce for the mining operation. He was rather impressed with one particular group that stood out from the others. It appeared this group was going to be the dominant one. This dominant version of a human had changed almost entirely in color. It began with deep dark brown skin like they all had in the beginning. But now it had transformed to become pale and light-colored, very much like Enki himself. Up till this point Enki and his crew had lived unnoticed among the humans. But it was time for a change. It was now about 190,000 Earth years since the Anunnaki had left in their flying spaceship, leaving Enki and his crew behind. Enki and his kind lived to be about 360,000 years old in Earth terms. Which meant if he was going to complete the actual mission he was here for, he would have to find success soon. His age was creeping up on him. The ice sheets that had once covered the Earth had been greatly diminished by this time, and the redistribution of the humans could begin. Enki had sent for the Anunnaki to return. The first mission was to gather all the humans of each kind based on their skin color. Then, each race was strategically dispersed around the world to the locations that were no longer inhospitable. There were 4 distinct races based solely on skin tone: dark brown, light brown, yellow, and white. The first 3 races were relocated in their entirety and kept together. The white race, however, was divided into 3 groups. These smaller groups of white humans were each placed to live with and among the other 3 races. And just as Enki had envisioned, the white humans did whatever they had to do so they would find themselves in a position of authority. It didn't take long, and with the help of the white humans, the mining operations to amass monoatomic gold were finally underway. Turning his attention back to the humans, it quickly became clear to Enki there was no way to actually detect the soul while it was inside the body of the human beings. It frustrated Enki to no end. He had gone so far as to take 13 human wives and further a large amount of children, half human, half Anunnaki. His intention was that if he could not achieve immortality, he could produce children that could. However, it was this phase of experimentation that nearly took Enki from a distinguished scientist to an obsessed maniac. There was no way to know if his experiments worked. The soul was no more detectable in his children than in humans. Whether he had been successful or not, Enki would never know. At this point, he was prepared to give up. The mining operations were nearly completed, and soon the Anunnaki would leave Earth forever. It was at this time, however, that Enki made his most crucial discovery. By chance, he stumbled across some undiscovered information stolen from Eden. Vital information about the soul. He learned the soul was, in fact, a tangible item. It could only be detected and seen after the death of the human host. It appeared that as it traversed the universe on the trip back to Eden, the soul became vulnerable. And that's when everything changed. Enki decided he was going to stay. The rest of the Anunnaki thought it was a strange request Enki made, but decided it was his choice to make in the end. They packed up their ship and left. Unknown to Enki, another member of their ranks was still on Earth with him. Having burnt every bridge with his superiors during arguments over the mining expedition, Marduk was banished to Earth, an outcast no longer wanted among his own kind. Also, unlike Enki, Marduk was open about his relations with human women. Something very much considered to be unacceptable. It didn't take Enki long to create a plan to confuse, distract, manipulate and erase any lingering recognition these humans may have about their soul and its purpose. Enki didn't want the knowledge of who they were, why they were on Earth, and what the purpose of the soul was, creeping back into the minds of men. He would give them a new, and totally different, understanding to live by. It was the act of leaving the one, which number 2 had done in the early years of creation, that gave all creatures free will. Free will would, in the eyes of Enki, become the most favorable of gifts bestowed on creation by the 6-headed beast. And Enki was prepared to take full advantage of many of the gifts he possessed if it meant immortality. The children of Enki were a powerful group. They had no soul, but they did have some of the strengths that made Enki such a powerful creature. One such quality they acquired was a lifespan much greater than a human. On average, these children would roam the earth for up to 5,000 years. Another was their size and strength. The males in particular reached heights of 10 feet, weighed nearly 800 pounds and had the strength of 10 men. The reaction of the population towards these massive creatures, who otherwise resembled humans, is what gave Enki the idea which ultimately resulted in our current state of world affairs today. Enki had his children roam the earth in search of the worst human beings alive. It was now apparent just how wrong some of Enki's experiments had gone. Murder is, rapists, thieves, and tyrants made up a decent part of the population. When they found these offenders, Enki's children made an example out of them and slaughtered them all in public settings. They then told the remaining humans the type of behavior these bad humans displayed was against what they were willing to accept from this point on. The children of Enki claimed their role as gods among men. They presented their absent father as the one, creator of heaven and earth, and promised anyone who crossed them or their father, would meet the same fate as the many men they had recently slaughtered. The humans began to cower in fear at the sight of these massive half-humans, and they would go to any length to secure the favor of these gods if they could. The reason Enki was going to such great lengths to deceive the humans should be of great concern to every human alive. Enki had been successful in his attempts to capture a human soul as it ascended to Eden. What he learned from this was, and still is, a very frightening prospect which affects us as human beings to this very day. Enki had found a way to harness, drain, and absorb the unique type of energy the human soul contained, into his own system. And by doing so had secured a lesser version of the immortality he had sacrificed so much of his sanity to while searching for the secrets to living forever. All he needed was an endless supply of human souls to drain and absorb, consume. For as long as he can secure a steady supply of human souls, Enki will not die. He is very much alive and hiding on Earth. Though I don't know, my guess is he is safely hidden in a secret room deep down below the Vatican. In their true form, the Anunnaki were not small creatures. Enki was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than the largest and most powerful of his children, Zeus. In his full Anunnaki dress uniform and in his true physical form, Enki presented himself to the occupants of Earth. The weapons of mass destruction he possessed gave credence to the claim he made to the population in each location he appeared as he demonstrated his powers for emphasis. Region by region Enki visited all the occupied territories around the world in support of what his children had recently established, the world's very first religion. Enki was determined to be their god, their creator and judge, and ruler of all. The concept took its place immediately in the minds of the population of Earth. To disrespect the one or his many children meant certain doom. But serving them with your life, and living to please the one meant great rewards here on Earth, and also in the afterlife. Enki painted the beautiful picture to the humans of eternal life with him. He explained the nature of the human soul and how it was a part of the human experience that could live forever as a guest in his kingdom. Next, he explained the nature of free will. To gain entry to his kingdom called heaven, a conscious desire had to be spoken aloud expressing a request to exist there with him. The humans were forced to drop to their knees in front of Enki. He wanted a pledge, on their life, to abide by the rules he had created for them to live by. Enki had made some reasonable requests, and the humans were happy to learn that outwardly, Enki appeared to be a fair and decent giant of a man-god. Like their father, the children of Enki took human lovers. By the time the first of Enki's children had grown old and died, his family had grown to be enormous. By the 5th generation of breeding with humans, Enki's grandchildren had taken on the human form and were indistinguishable from the actual humans. Under Enki's guidance his grandchildren would tighten the hold on humans by introducing governments and the church to all mankind, each with its own design to control how the humans lived their lives. The world was separated into manageable-sized sections called countries. Borders were drawn, and several kingdoms established within each country. The residents of these countries were then divided further to ensure they remained a totally conquered society that would have no hope to ever escape this enslavement. New churches were allowed to rise up, and new religions. People were all of a sudden concerned with skin color, heritage, and financial status. Anything the kings could use to divide people, they used. It was simple, The only thing that could ever cause problems was numbers created by unity. The most influential of Inky's extended family were put in positions of power to rule over the entirety of each country. Kings. A hierarchy of control over all the humans was put in place. All to secure Inky's place at the top of it all. Inky also arranged every marriage that ever happened in his family. He was very insistent certain guidelines be followed to ensure the bloodline his future grandchildren were born into stayed pure. And to this day, though we don't realize or accept it, the descendants of Inky's children continue to hold control of the world. And they still have no souls. As observant, intelligent, and cautious as Inky was, it turned out he wasn't quite as secretive as he thought himself to be. His obsession with the soul had made him careless. Much to his surprise, he realized Marduk had been left behind and was hiding in plain sight, living on Earth in human form. And he had discovered why Inky had gone to such extremes creating this elaborate system of control over the humans. Being left behind, Marduk was angry. And he hated this planet. He was looking for a way to seek revenge on the human race. Like most deviant minds, he blamed all things, except himself and his lust for human women, for all of his problems. When Marduk discovered the secret Inky was keeping, he documented everything, including how Inky was taking credit for all creation and falsely claiming to be the one. Marduk used the evidence he had gathered to blackmail Inky into providing him access to the technology so he could consume souls and become immortal as well. As miserable, angry, and pissed off at the world as Marduk was, there was no surprise in the way he chose to win possession of the souls he meant to acquire. He played on the worst of the human traits that had developed in the unfortunate victims of Inky's obsession with genetic manipulation. Traits like greed, anger, jealousy and corruption were Marduk's signature approach. He would provide material riches such as money, gold, precious gems, and even sultry women. Once his intended victim became obsessed, he would make a trade. A life of gluttony, control and power, for simply agreeing to spend eternity with him in the afterlife. Marduk painted his own picture of an awesome place to spend eternity, which also would attract its fair share of humans. Like Inky, Marduk had succumbed to the sex appeal of the women of Earth. He had a large family of part human, part Anunnaki children and grandchildren just like Inky. He brought them all together. But rather than operate like Inky and create an opposing faction of towns and cities of their own, Marduk decided his approach would consist of infiltrating and corrupting the system of control Inky had established, from the inside out. In response, Inky had the church had a story that told of a fate worse than death for those who would take up sides with Marduk. To join with Marduk meant your soul would burn and be tortured forever in a truly evil, sick place called hell. And just as this battle for human souls really got going in full swing, it came to a sudden stop. In a stunning display of IT's intense capability, the One appeared suddenly out of thin air. In the next instant, swooping from the sky, came a small fleet of spacecraft which landed very close to where the One now stood. From inside these crafts a group of representatives from Eden stepped foot on the soil of Earth for the first time in well over 100,000 years. Sadness turned quickly to anger as what they saw around them sunk in. They wanted their planet back. But with something as complicated as the One mediating the situation, it would not be as simple as forcing the Anunnaki out. The One saw opportunity for a test of strength between the soulless creation of the six-headed beast and his very own creation, the residents of Eden. It was the humans the One wanted put to the test. IT had approved the original design of human beings, but now had some serious doubt about the integrity of this mutated creature that was really nothing like it had started out to be. There were great concerns about gifting immortality to such an unstable life form even if they did have to earn it. So, To ensure these humans were put to the test, the One decided that the Anunnaki would no longer be allowed to reveal themselves in the flesh to humans. Both Enki and Marduk would have to go into permanent hiding or leave Earth. It was up to them. The residents of Eden were given the same restrictions. They were not permitted to blatantly land in the town center and show themselves to the residents of Earth. They had to find a way for the humans to see what was happening, for the world to end up going from what it was to what it is now, today, here in 2016. Enki was quick to approach Marduk with a truce. Considering all that was at stake, the two opposing Anunnaki warriors decided to join forces and unite their families. The One had only asked Enki and Marduk to leave. Their families were permitted to stay on Earth. They had no souls, so were of no interest to the One. At this point Marduk went into hiding. Enki, on the other hand, used his ability to shape-shift one last time, as he too disappeared from the face of the earth, never to be seen in his true form again. Enki transformed himself into a fertilized embryo in the womb of a descendant of his own family, a young woman named Mary. 9 months later Enki was born into the world as a human baby. A baby with no soul of its own. A baby named Jesus. A baby that would forever enslave mankind and provide himself and Marduk an everlasting supply of souls. At least that was the plan the two Anunnaki had come up with after being confronted by the One. The Centaurians were also a smart bunch. But this type of mental warfare was not their strong suit. The Anunnaki had the advantage since deceit seemed to be the spirit of this contest. They were not without some tricks and secrets of their own. The residents of Eden had began abducting humans a couple hundred years ago. They hoped the process of reversing the genetic manipulations that Enki had performed could be discovered. It turned out to be impossible. Much of what Enki had done was now a permanent part of human life. Regardless, they had a plan B. And once more the humans were subjected to further genetic modifications. It was a tricky process. The human host had to physically die. Then their soul was captured and manipulated. A jolt of electricity was used to bring the human back to life. And that was it. The altered soul returned to the body. The human was released back to where it was taken from, unharmed. This method wasn't the quick fix needed, but in the long run, it would be more effective. This addition to the soul didn't change the person who received the upgrade. It was designed to create change in the offspring of the recipients. It was a process that would take a very long time, but it would eventually produce some very different humans. They would look the same as everyone else, but their hearts and minds would be far more in tune with the needs of Mother Earth and her occupants. And the best-case scenario would result in the re-establishment of the telepathic connection of the two halves of which the authentic humans had shared. And in the early part of the 1900s, the very first indigo soul arrived on Earth, a quirky Australian man named Errol Flynn. The long-awaited results started to trickle in, until the late 1960s when the first main wave of indigo souls were born into this world. And every year since the numbers have grown. As indigo souls matured and began having children of their own, the crystal children began to arrive. The crystal children are to be witness to a great change. It's their duty and role to document what takes place. They will use the knowledge of their journey to create a better way of life for the future. Never again will people suffer the fate the human population has endured so far at the hands of Enki and Marduk. The union between the children of Enki and Marduk was very powerful. And very corrupt. For almost 2,000 years they have worked hand in hand to ensure the secrets and lies of the past stay buried. The Church knows all the lies. It's their role to protect Marduk and Enki and keep them alive by ensuring a steady stream of our souls arrive to be consumed. It was also a key component of the plan to ensure that the world never finds out how two Anunnaki madmen fooled the world with a story about Jesus and Lucifer to enslave the world. If you haven't caught on, there is only one way to win back the Garden of Eden. Enki and Marduk have exceeded their lifespan and are vulnerable. The source of their immortality, our souls, is all that is keeping them alive. A recent surge in spirituality and atheism has weakened them. The Pope is above all. He commands the legion of soulless tyrants who have taken over the world. They have crafted a web of deceit and corruption in the never-ending lust for power and control of the entire planet. And in doing so, they have enslaved us all. We are bound to them in several ways. The most powerful way is something called the monetary system. The almighty dollar. Value is placed on a worthless object, a simple piece of paper for example. That object is then provided in great quantity to most anyone with the ability to repay what was borrowed. By charging a substantial fee for such a loan, these tyrants in control of the monetary system are making a huge profit at our expense for doing absolutely nothing. They have found a way to control every aspect of our lives. They control food production, food quality and food distribution. They control energy production and distribution. They control access to water, healthcare, education and a whole long list of other essential services. If $1 of profit can be made, they have found the way to make it. And they have introduced a massive array of distractions which draw our attention away from everything they do, TV being one of the most potent distractions of them all. War is another distraction, and the profit earned is 10x the return of any investment they would ever allow us to make. The value of weapons of war are greatly overinflated. The elite own factories that produce these weapons. Then governments all over the world purchase these weapons using government funding. Of course it means there will always be a reason for war. And these nasty, sick monsters have about sucked the world dry of financial security. Money not only keeps us enslaved, it's the perfect distraction as well. These distractions serve to create an atmosphere of confusion about, and detachment from, the present moment. In case it may have slipped past you, the present moment is all we have. Though their system of timekeeping lends a hand to distract you from the fact that time doesn't exist. It is always, right now. Right now is the time to face these liars. Right now is the time to walk away from their churches, their beliefs, their laws, their banks, their corporations that monopolize the food industry and their set of principles which guide our entire lives. Right now it's time to end this nightmare of illusion and deceit.